This is the last part of the 4-duck problem, last book of the Remembrance of Earth's Past trilogy, Death's End. If you've come here to see and hear about the end of all things, this is it. Let's get into it. Thank you for joining us, the 4th Duck Problem podcast. We've come all the way to the last book. If you're still listening to us, thank you so much. You're doing it. You're gonna get the last hit. And all hope is going to leave you.
We got to the end, literally and figuratively.
Yes. You said in the first episode that the 4th duck or the 3rd duck is hope. It's left.
Ah, right. Yeah.
So on this episode, the duck's coming back and it's going to be crushed into pieces. And just like laughed at, humiliated and just killed. So exciting conclusion to this book coming up. Mm-hmm. And our thoughts on the Death's End by Liu Cixin. When I started reading this, I was like, why is this called Death's End? Is it going to mean that death died? Or what? Right. How did you understand this title?
I don't know. I was just thinking about, and we talked about this during the Lovecraft episode. We read the famous quote, in Ian's, even death may die. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So what does it mean when death dies? Does it mean everybody's immortal or does it mean everybody's died?
The most common idea I've seen it put forward is that if nothing's alive, then death is also finished.
Of course, it's the verse explanation. Yes, I agree. Yeah. Okay.
Because even if everyone is immortal, I guess things can still die. Like it is possible to reverse the process, and
yeah, that's right.
But if everything is dead, then nothing can die.
Okay. So coming up on this episode, one of our favorite characters. That's what I meant to say at the start. There are characters. I approve of these characters in the last book. Did you feel like that?
It's a little hard to tell. There are a few characters which I think were interesting in this one. I still feel that the best character is the female main character, not the main character in the first book.
It might be my favorite character from the whole series, Wade, who is the answer to my nonsensical madman theory from episode 1 of this trilogy for quadrilogy. When we started, I was talking about this theory, how cuteness will solve world's problems, and if everybody's tame and nobody fights ever again, we are gonna live happily ever after. And Wade, the character in this book, is the answer to this nonsense.
Yes.
I'm gonna start with a very short quote. I think Wade said it. And he said, if we lose our human nature, we lose much. But if we lose our bestial nature, we lose everything.
Which I guess it's also a reference to the ending of the second book and the Battle in the Darkness.
Yes. So, yeah, it's going to be grim. Overall, how did you like the last book?
I had very conflicting feelings about the last book. I think it had a lot of things which were kind of pointless. Some things that were not explored enough. I didn't like the female main character so much. Like, I guess the main character of the book. I didn't like her so much. I think, again, she was just another weak female character who was just, at the mercy of whatever was happening.
Yeah, I guess I just wasn't thinking about that too much, so I was like, I'll let it pass. That's not what I'm here for.
And also, of course, there is the difference between, like, the man being the warrior, stoic, and willing to fight, and the woman was like, oh, no, love. Everyone must love everything. Blah, blah, blah. I don't know.
It was my second, on the list. I like the first one the least. I didn't like the ending, at all. We will get to it later, but my feeling were something big happens, and I think okay, it's the end, and then what, and then more, and then why, and oh my god, just stop, and then there is more, and then more crap. It's just stop it. The last 5 chapters should have been on the next book. I felt like.
I think the ending was shocking. I don't know how much it was shocking just for the sake of being shocking, and how it actually was interesting, and it was something that worked. I mean, I liked it, but I feel like the ending was better than some of the parts in the middle of the book.
Okay, it wasn't bad. The ending wasn't bad, but at the ending, the first few endings that happened already, I was already crushed and desperate and like super depressed. And I was like, just end this book. Why? And I feel like the author was the same. He was like exhausted after all this epic, and he had these great ideas he wanted to include, and he didn't want to start another saga or book or series. So he's gonna have to cram it in there, and he crammed it in there very well, very hard.
Well, we'll get there later, but I think that's not really... I'm not sure his ideas were actually to start a new saga or new books.
I'm sure that it wasn't.
It could be. It's just something that he left open just in case he wants to make other books in the future.
It felt like he definitely never wanted to continue and start another. And that's why it was cramped in. That's what I meant.
It could be. So, before we start, there is something I wanted to say.
Okay.
Or to read, to be... So, as many people do, I like to listen to music while I read books. Sometimes I just listen to whatever and, different things or whatever I want to listen at that time specifically. Sometimes I stick to a certain album or to a certain artist, especially if I feel like that the music and the atmosphere and the lyrics and everything else really fit the mood and the topics of the book.
Okay.
For example, with Dune, I do have a couple of albums where every time I listen to them, even now, I think about Dune.
Okay.
I think they fit really well with Dune. Anyway, long story short, Spotify decided I had to listen to some songs by In Flames, which is a band I didn't really know much about until recently. And I started to listen to this album over and over while reading this book because I think it fits really well. Specifically, the second track and the third track fit really well. So I just wanted to read a few of the lyrics because I think...
Is this about dying? Is it like a requiem classical music thing?
The second track, it's called The End.
Oh my god, I knew it.
So it starts really well because I think the beginning is really fitting to the ending of the second book, which is, I got a new kind of fear, something you don't want of you. There's this path that I can see. It leads straight to misery. We can't undo what we have done. Just face what's up ahead. We fight and we stumble. The fuse is lit. You better run now.
Oh my god. Great.
Okay.
Lovely.
Then the chorus says, do you think about the end? The words you say with your last breath and the emptiness in space. Do you think about the end? That slow last breath of air, the words you say with your last breath, and the emptiness in space. So
that's my response.
Maybe I'm seeing too much into it, but I thought they were...
No,
really
you're not.
fitting.
That's exactly what was in the book. Exactly.
Yeah. After that, the third track, I think it fits really well the character of Yun Tianming, because, so that the lyrics say, I believe that the whole wide world is against me. I believe that the whole wide world is afraid of me. How did I end up here, half alive, and so full of tears and fears?
Definitely.
If I'm honest, I think you'll see, I'm scared to shit what's coming for me.
Yep. So the conspiracy is that the social media accounts analyzed your books, and then they super fitted all these lyrics to exactly describe what you were reading. So I just want to say the book starts with like a part that didn't really have to be there. Like it's in medieval times.
Right. Yes.
Constantinople. And they have a magician and they basically perform magic tricks by reaching in other dimensions.
Yes.
Which is something I always wanted to see in a fictional story, and I don't know why it's not more often thought of, like a magician using some kind of technology or randomly discovered physical elements or physics to trick people into thinking he's magical. I think this is like a very interesting concept that should be explored in stories much more. Like a super simple example would be you find a piece of radioactive material and you cast curses on people by having them hold it, and then they just die from radiation or something like that. So that's like a magical... like people don't understand that, they have no concept of it, so you could very simply discover something like that by accident and then use it for your gain to pretend you're a magician. And I feel like it has to have happened, and this is kind of that story. So finally it happened in a book.
Yeah, the beginning was pretty interesting. I didn't expect it. In the edition I have, so at the end of the second book, there is an extract from the first chapter of the third book. So I read the beginning of the third book immediately after reading the second book.
Okay.
And I was kind of like, what the fuck is it?
Yes.
I was like, what? We were in the future. Why Why are we in 1453? Yeah, that was kind of weird.
So if you haven't read this, it's just a witch, and she like steals people's organs from their bodies by reaching into them, by going into the fourth dimension, and then like taking their brain out or something. I forget what the details were.
Yeah,
but
yeah, she does that.
Which is like foreshadowing for the whole story here, but it's like you didn't have to be there. I don't think it's necessary, this part.
I mean, it's okay. It's just
it was fun.
I guess you wanted to play with a fun introduction. So it's fine.
It like fulfilled my fantasy. This kind of story, like I said, I wanted this finally.
Yeah.
So then we jump to another unnecessary part I wanted to mention quickly. The start of the first book in the timeline, where Yang Dong, the daughter of the main character, Yavenjie, and how she discovers Trisolaris and all the Trisolaran things, and then she commits suicide.
Yes.
And I don't know why this was there at all. Like, do you see any reason?
I completely agree. I was waiting for this chapter to pay off because the Constantinople one pays off later.
Yeah.
This one doesn't pay off at all. I guess the whole point of this chapter was to show that life shapes planets and that if there's no life on a planet, in a way it's kind of like life creates the condition for life to happen on a planet, which is a very interesting concept and one that is highly debated.
I completely forgot that was there. But
yeah,
I remember, yeah.
Honestly speaking, it's not really relevant to the book.
I feel like Mr. Cixin is trying to put off people in the beginning of these books as much as he can. Like all these starts of these books are like kind of like the first book there was a kind of like slow burn, then the second book there was a bunch of like waifu nonsense, and then this book has this. It's like just cut it out.
I think the first book started really, really well. The first book.
So as far as I'm concerned, cut out the first two parts, and start when they actually jumped to the timeline where we ended. When Luoji was appointed Wallfacer, and now we're like in this peaceful timeline. And now Yu Tianming, they mentioned this character, and also mentioned Cheng. How do you say that? Cheng Qin. It's an Xin. Everything's Ch because I can't say in Chinese.
Yeah, it's Cheng Qin.
Okay.
I think, but it could be anything.
Okay. So they're trying to devise some kind of a strategy or technology that they can develop to reach Trisolaris and just somehow talk to the fleet and have any advanced technology with the limitations they've been put into. And they started working on this nuclear catapult.
Yes.
And I was like, where is this going? Oh my god. And then, then they started like, okay, so we can't do it like this or that, and there are limitations and more limitations. I was like, damn, what's going to happen? I'm already worried.
Well, and also like this whole story is like alternating with Yun Tianming's story, who is in the hospital and he has terminal cancer. He will die pretty soon, and he's thinking about opting for
euthanasia.
And I think that this is one of the most depressing points, to be honest, because
that's my question. So how did you like this, Mr. Connoisseur of Despair or Connoisseur of Despair?
Like this is a moment where it's really realistic. Like most of the like existential dread in these books is due with something like really out there, like space and aliens and things like that. This is the only like really depressing point which is really close to heart, which is
and they pile it on.
Yeah,
euthanasia,
exactly, like,
depression, nobody loves him.
Yeah, such a shitty life. Like, all the pressure from traditional Asian families on the children,
and a whole love story that's failed like 7 times. We shouldn't go into that, but he's got a love interest and it doesn't work out at all. So hard.
Yeah, so, and then the last straw is the sister essentially asking him to commit suicide.
It's so bad. I was like, I'm already crushed after the second book. What are you doing to me? This doesn't even have to do anything with space. Yeah. And you're already making me upset so much.
It is very interesting because it's such a controversial topic and one that it's really hard not to care about. The whole point where it says we are spending a shit ton of money to keep you alive and you will die anyway. While on the other side, we could use this money to...
This is literally the answer to the question this book is asking. And the question is, who would go and do this? Who would be up for this insanity mission?
Yes.
This is the answer. This person is the answer. So he's so down in the dumps. He couldn't be more like depressed. And this love interest wouldn't give any fucks about him, even notice him. And then finally they work on this project. And his love interest is working on this project. And then they like, okay, we have to shoot a person in a capsule with this like nuclear catapult something.
Yeah.
And it works in a sense that they're gonna set off nuclear explosions in sequence, and they're gonna step by step propel like a package to make it accelerate. And they're like, so how much weight can we put into this? Not much. And then they're like, okay, so we can put it less and less and less. And then they're like, okay, so it's just like 200 grams or some bullshit.
Yeah, like, I don't remember.
Yeah, just very, very little. Yeah. And they're like, so the only weight we could fit in, as far as people are concerned, is a brain. And I think Wade is there already. Is he there, or is it not him?
Yeah, he's already there. He's the one suggesting this.
So he's always the most rational, reasonable, the roughest bastard. He's like, okay, we're shooting a brain in space. I don't even care.
Yeah.
And the second he said it, I was like, oh, I know who's going to be shot into space.
Yeah, that was a oh fuck moment.
It was so bad.
Yep.
It was so bad. Yeah, I'm trying to make this funny, because if I don't make it funny, I'm going to be crying while talking about this.
Okay. But then, if you remember, when they actually shoot his brain into space, which he decides to agree on just because his love interest.
Yeah, who asked him to do that? Who asked him to put a brain in a capsule? Who asked his love interest, who never mentioned. And also, after he bought a star with all his money to gift to this love interest who never noticed him and never cared about him, and he gave it to her anonymously, and then after that she still doesn't know it was him who gave it to her.
Oh, to be fair, that was like that serves a plot point. The whole fact that he got money from a university friend because he had this great idea, and they start selling stars, and he got this star for her. I don't know. It serves a plot point later, but I think it was really stretched, and I didn't like that so much. And especially I didn't like the fact that she was like, oh, wow, this guy I don't know bought me a star. I'm totally in love with him. I'm like, what?
That was very strange how she fell in love with somebody.
Literally, one of the lines was, this is when I feel like I was really fed up with the way Cixin Liu writes women. He wrote, like, women couldn't ask for anything more than being loved and receiving a star or something.
I don't remember that part. You're explaining why people give so much critique on like the women characters. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, and the thing is, literally, like 2 chapters before, she was getting bashed because she was a woman and she had this brilliant idea, but everyone was looking at her only as a woman and as a scientist. And she had this moment where she was like, even though I'm younger and I'm a woman, actually, I'm smarter than you all because I'm Chinese. She doesn't say that, but clearly that's the reason. Which, okay, it was a good moment, but then it was completely eradicated. Like, she's never a scientist for the rest of the book. For the rest of the book, she's just a peace-loving woman.
Oh, that's right. I completely forgot she was a scientist.
She stopped being a scientist.
That's a good point. I didn't even remember she was a scientist, and I just said it. That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, so that's bad.
So... yeah, I really didn't like that. And then he had at this point where, like, launch of the brain doesn't go according to plan, and they think that the brain is lost forever.
Yeah, they start exploding the nuclear blast, and then one of them malfunctions, and they shoot it, like, off to the side. And I was like, all this for shooting him into nowhere?
Yeah, and then he got, of course, he got found anyway by the Trisolaran fleet, which, at that point, I was really asking myself, what's the point of even...
I think I felt like they just want to crush us into submission and be so depressed as much as possible. It
didn't make any sense. If he was going to be found anyway, and look, as a reader, you knew he would be found anyway. So what was really the point of creating problems? I don't know.
So just to explain the reason why they wanted to send a person and opted for a brain to Trisolaran fleet was that if they actually have a person on board with them on the Trisolaran spaceship, they would be more willing to understand people and spare us or something, save us. Is that correct?
Yeah, or the person would be able to reason with them or send like spy for them.
Which already is like a very strange concept and plan, but okay. I was like, what are they doing exactly with this like person shooting in there?
Yeah, honestly speaking, I think it was even counterproductive in a way, because it meant...
I guess desperate times calls for desperate measures. That's the answer. But
like
it's
shooting a brain into space at like, what, 1% the light speed or something, the speed of light.
I was amazed how this ridiculous concept was described in such a serious and like sad manner. I've never heard such a crazy...
I don't know.
Like, and being put so well. So I appreciate how he wrote it.
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of crazy ideas in this book, and I guess this was just another one.
Just to set you up for for what's coming. So after they shoot the brain and it fails, the character who stopped being scientist, Cheng Chin, I can't say it correctly, sorry.
Cheng Chin.
So she decides to go into hibernation to jump into the future and see how this project turns out in the future. Yeah,
they wanted some people from her agency to go to the future.
So basically now we're waiting for the Trisolaran fleet to arrive, and we're observed by the phones, and at the same time Luoji is holding his like truce.
Yes. And before she goes into hibernation, she has this moment where she thinks about her parents, who are actually her foster parents because she was an orphan and she got adopted. And realizing that if she gets hibernated, then she will never see her friends and family again. Which
that's right.
Should be kind of like an obvious thing, but in the second book, no one gives a shit about getting hibernated.
They never mentioned it.
There's
maybe
never
it was his afterthought.
Like Luoji, like he gets hibernated. He never says like, "Oh yeah, maybe I should say goodbye to my parents and friends and everything else." Like it's just whatever.
That's true.
Yeah.
So in the meantime, while she's hibernating, you have this like peace period on Earth, I think.
Yes.
And they have like this descriptions of Trisolaran art and like music. Is it at this point?
Yes, Trisolaris. Like the population of Trisolaris gets this really deep interest for humans. They are basically like Americans where they found about anime and Japan.
I was waiting where this is going.
And, they started to love Japan and like, oh, I want to go to Japan. That's so cool. And everything about Japan is so cool. I want to make anime. And
because if you remember, they don't have a concept of lying. They don't have a concept of being dishonest. So for them, this fiction, which involves dishonesty and trickery and mischievous behavior, is fascinating.
Yes.
So that makes complete sense. I like this part. I like how they describe
I really liked it.
Art
I really liked it. I think it was an interesting point. How there is this cultural cross-pollination. There is Sophon, like on Earth, was revered. Of course, she's in Beijing because, of course, the war is only about China.
So how did that happen? So Sophon is like a character, like a robot, like a remotely controlled machine. But how did they build her? I forgot that. How did they materialize her there? Did she come out of
the humans built her.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah.
So they just control her with the Sophon, but
exactly. Because before, when they had to speak with the Sophons would change dimension, and it would be super creepy and strange. So they decided to create this droid so that it was easier to communicate
to talk to
with.
somebody. So that's what we talked about. How Sophon means like a name for a girl. So now it's an actual girl.
Yeah, in Japanese it sounds like a woman's name. So she looks like a Japanese woman.
And she does all these like tea ceremonies and
she
dresses in
like
kimonos
a ninja,
and like she's super elegant and So at the same time, while this is happening, we had like a break, like a breather of relaxing non-depression. Like, okay, think about art and like take a few minutes to like not be crushed. And then as soon as
they go to a future with no man.
So before they go in the future, there's also the moment with the spaceships.
Yes.
And so the Battle of Darkness, was it?
Yes, one of the two Battle of Darkness.
So they announced to this ship that's escaping that they can come back because it's all been solved and we have a truce and everybody's safe. And I was like, no, don't go, don't listen. And they're like, yeah. So we're gonna come back and everything's gonna be fine and dandy and it's perfect. And as soon as they come back, they're like, we're the heroes, we survived the Battle of Darkness, we survived the Battle of the Droplets and everything. And as soon as they come back, they're like, we got you. Crime against humanity. You're arrested.
Yes.
And fortunately, as they're being arrested, they sent a message to the other ship on the other side of somewhere where they're escaping.
Yes.
And they warned them to not go back to Earth because they would be just tried for crimes against humanity and they escape.
They were not planning on going back anyway.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I was like, thank God, somebody got away from this clusterfuck of international, interplanetary, interspaceship, intercivilization clusterfuck of bullshit. I'm so happy somebody escaped. It was my moment.
Which turned out to be a very good thing.
Yeah. So I was hoping, because I was sure at this point that Earth is done, and I was like, somebody has to escape.
Yes.
So they
did escape.
So great. I was afraid, because at this point I was afraid that only the brain will escape. I was like, all that's going to be left for humanity was the brain.
I was afraid that, the only thing that would survive would be the brain and the woman. So I was really afraid that would be the ending.
Which was a clever play on the author, because I think that's what he was doing. I think he was trying to make us feel like that. He was like... I wonder who's gonna be left.
Yes.
Just the brain.
Maybe it will be just the brain.
So then we jump to the future. Cheng Qin wakes up and she finds a world without men. So you can continue, sorry.
There was another thing which was so dumb, it bothered me so much. She's apparently continuing with the trend that he was already showing in the second book. In the future, because people don't care about countries so much and they don't care about war, they want peace and social welfare and equality and all of these things. Of course, they are not men. They stop growing beards, and even men look like women, and they're all pussies, and none of them can hold the Power Ranger title.
It kind of made sense. Like, everything's peaceful, they just want to put it in contrast with the desperation eras.
Okay, no, I mean, fine. But the tone it was using, it was clearly mocking the whole thing. Like, it was clearly putting it in a way so that, look at these so-called men.
That's true. And they keep having analogies and comparing it to other stuff, which I wanted to mention at the beginning. I forgot that there is so many similes, analogies, metaphors, whatever you want to say.
That's throughout the 3 books. They're always making comparisons.
So I wanted to say, if somebody who's listening can speak Chinese, please send us a message and tell us, is this common in Chinese literature? I would be curious.
Or in Chinese in general.
In Chinese in general. So if you speak Chinese, send us a message at mindduckjapan@gmail.com and let us know if this is normal or if it's just here. But yeah. So Wade also hibernated. That's the rational bastard guy, my favorite character. And what does he want to do? As soon as he wakes up.
He wants to kill Jin. However you pronounce her name.
You should just call it CX.
Yes, because so Luo Ji has become the Power Ranger. So he's the guy who has the power to activate the transmission.
They call it MAD, like MAD, mutually assured destruction transmission or broadcast.
Exactly. But he's old, and also people hate him because they say, oh, he blew up a star. Maybe there was a civilization on that star. He might have killed an entire civilization, for all we know. Which, I mean, I understand why. I can believe that some people would say that, but it would be, in real life, it would be such a small minority that, honestly...
I think they're just trying to show that people grew soft.
Yeah.
And they're trying to find all the correctness.
Yeah. Anyway, so they need a new Power Ranger.
So they call him Sword Holder.
Yeah. Throughout the time, I kept thinking that they were dressed like Power Rangers. And so, of course, they can only ask the manly men from the 20th century, because nowadays, the manly men, like in the future, the manly men are not manly men anymore. They're all pussies. So that's not acceptable. Yeah, so Wade understands that they would choose Cheng Qin because she's all lovely and pure. So in this Sanrio world, she's the perfect Hello Kitty, and so he thinks, oh, if I kill her, they'll choose me, which is incredibly dumb. What?
They wouldn't, but his deduction of them choosing her is a good point.
Yes, but it's also revealed that this was Tri Solaris' plan all along.
Yes.
I guess, Tri Solarians have become good at strategizing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they learned from all the fiction and all the intrigue and lying and all this trickery.
But at the same time, I don't know, people are really dumb.
Yeah, but it's still, I like this plot point because it all kind of came together. But the point that if Wade killed her, he would be awarded the Sword Holder Power Ranger. I don't think that would happen.
No.
So there's a note from the translation, Chinese and English. So in Chinese, so Cheng Jin. So it means from the heart.
Yes.
Or complete heart or something like that. And Veid, in Chinese, Veide, or Veide, I don't know how to pronounce that, means morality, virtue, preserving rights and values, and like harsh logic and rationality. Which is like so much on the nose.
Yes.
That's what I meant with the like symbolism and all this. Like, so I would be curious if to Chinese readers, is it on the nose or is it actually like fun?
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I feel the same sometimes. Like when I was reading Japanese comics when I was younger, and these names meant nothing to me. But then now that I can speak a little Japanese, I'm thinking like these names are very dumb. Like they were clearly indicating who the character was and so on. So
also the name we talked about earlier, Yun Tianming, the guy whose brain got shot into space. So his name means a cloudy sky turned bright. So yeah. So, of course, Cheng Jing, I'm just going to say CX. So, CX is because she's got a best friend and her name is AA. So
yeah, AA, exactly. Oh, that was like, I'm not sure if it's a genius name or it's an awful name. AA.
Well, anyways, CX is awarded the next position, or she's going to be the next sword holder Power Ranger.
Yeah, she should be the next Power Ranger.
And with the Chinese translation, it's so much on the nose because the Luoji name, the current sword holder's name, so it means logic. Yes. Luoji. And her name means like from the heart. So the logic is handing the power to the heart.
Yes. It was pretty clear what the author was going for.
And immediately we're fucked, as you might expect.
Yes.
As soon as as soon as she takes over.
Literally seconds later.
So Tritlarans just know that she will not be able to destroy everybody with the MAD broadcast.
They bet on that.
And of course she just it rushes through her head. There's a whole section about her thinking about it, and obviously she's not gonna do it. So the droplets that are near Earth, they just destroy everything and they take over, and Sophon just goes mad, the lady robot, and kills everybody. And
she doesn't kill everybody. She says that everybody has to relocate to Australia, and then they will be left there with basically nothing, so they have to...
She killed a bunch of people. Yeah. She sliced them up with a katana like a ninja.
She kills, but in that case, like, those people were kind of like misbehaving. Okay. But then she announces that after everyone has moved to Australia, they would, be left to themselves, so that they have to fight for like their survival in a survival of the fittest strategy environment, I guess.
The Trisolarans destroy all people's ability to broadcast the signal to have everybody destroyed, except on the ship that's escaping, thankfully. Yes. They still have a transmitter that can still send the
Not the ship that is escaping, the ship that was pursuing the ship that was escaping.
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh yeah, so they sent, I didn't say that, they sent a ship to pursue the other ship that was escaping, along with the droplets, so they are cooperating with the Trisolarans now.
Yes.
To catch this threat of these people who became other people because they left the Earth.
Yes. But of course the droplets want to destroy this, and so there is this very, very long kind of like cliffhanger where the droplets are about to attack Gravity, which is the ship that was pursuing the ship that survived the Battle of Darkness. It seems like they will all die, but then actually they survived thanks to the Battle of Darkness survivors who can use the fourth dimension.
Yeah. So to put it simply, they moved into the fourth dimension through a bubble in space-time continuum, whatever the fuck.
Yeah. And so in that region of space, there are a lot of bubbles which lead to the fourth dimension, and they understood that they were there, and they understood how to find them. So they were able to do a bunch of things, including activating the signal.
Yeah, and find more opportunities how to feel depressed. Yes. So they when they move from 3D space to 4D space, it doesn't destroy them because they are in lower dimensions. Yes. They can move into higher dimensions, and they can see from the fourth dimensional point of view inside of things that are 3D. The same like we would be able to see inside of 2D things because we can see them from the top.
Yes.
And it's overwhelming, and so what they did was they could reach inside of the droplet, which has this indestructible material from the outside, but when they can reach around it, then they can just destroy it simply from the inside.
Essentially, they can phase through the droplet
Which I guess was why the beginning of this book, why how the magician was was able to phase through stuff, so that was setting this up.
Yeah, which was very interesting. I think it was a nice twist, so I like that. And I like the characters in this part. Like, I like the guy who was like the cook, who was the trigger man. That was interesting.
I remember I liked it too, but I forget this character.
So essentially, like on nuclear submarines, there was a trigger man who was like someone who no one on the crew knew who it was, and he was in charge of disabling the nuclear missiles in case something happened. Okay. So to avoid that, and they had like special access to the launch and everything else, so that to avoid that, there was some people who would go crazy or any other problem, and people would start the Third World War. So
this guy was in charge of making sure nobody accidentally sets off the MAD broadcast, the MAD destroy everybody broadcast.
Exactly. So he was planning to go and destroy it.
But fortunately he didn't. So the droplets are disabled. In the meantime, they moved everybody to Australia on Earth. And fortunately, these ships arrived. And somehow they learned about what happened with Earth.
Yeah.
And they like, fuck it, we're sending the signal. Everybody's doomed and we're out.
Yeah.
Which I didn't expect them to do. I was like, yay, you did it.
The
I didn't think they would do it.
Yeah. In the meantime, like, a bunch of years have passed. So on Earth, a lot of people have died. And before we talk about Australia itself, and I want to hear what you have to say about that.
Okay.
The book goes at length to talk about all the transition from the whole war to Australia and how difficult it was and all the problems it caused and the tension and everything else. Also about the resistance outside of that. So it talks a lot about that process.
Yeah. I kind of spaced it out.
Yeah.
I remember now. Yes.
But then basically it doesn't talk at all about moving the whole population back to their countries. Like, it assumes that it's just a smooth and easy process, while like it'd probably be like, in a way, even harder than the process of moving everyone to Australia. Like, it would lead to a shit ton of conflict and everything else, because of course, like, people in like disadvantaged areas would want to move to advantageous areas, for example. Glosses over everything. It's just like, they go back to their own countries. We can go back to China. That's it. Chinese only want to live in China, so that's okay.
I feel like he's got a problem with going into things too much and then therefore not having enough time to go into other things. And this is a prime example of that, how he wanted to super examine this like moving to Australia. To be honest, like what you said, what I have to say, I didn't care much. I was like, everybody's dying, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And this is going somewhere. So just tell me where it's going.
I mean, we are in the middle of the book, so...
I'm like, this is not going to be the end of people, or this is going to be the end of people. Either way, I don't care about how they're moving there. Just let them die or whatever. And it's all terrible. And how she was like being stampeded and crushed, like the character in between all these people dying. It was horrifying. And I didn't want more horrifying shit. I'm already horrified. So I was like, just die.
To me, that was fine. What I didn't like is that this section suffers from the problem that most American post-apocalyptic shows suffer from. I see this especially in American shows, which is their assumption that if the world is ending, the survivors will still build a society based on the previous society, which is, of course, America. So, for example, if you watch shows like Falling Skies or Battlestar Galactica...
Oh yeah, that's true.
Like, they always... They stick to protocol and form so much, which is completely realistic. I always thought it was completely dumb. Anyway, and in this section of the book, they do the same thing, where like she wants to speak with Sophon and she has to go to like the, I don't know, provincial governor or something like that, like a bureaucrat. And it's like, huh? Like, in this situation, you think there would be that kind of structure and bureaucracy? Are you serious? Like, do you really believe that people would do that? Like, people would be like, oh, yeah, everyone is getting relocated to this island and we might get massacred and, our planet is about to be invaded by aliens.
I'm gonna be honest, like, this part I just glossed over kind of, because even the guy she was staying with, like, the, like, super traditional aboriginal somebody... Yeah. I was like, okay, just like, whatever.
I mean, maybe this is just me, because I'm dumb, but I kind of missed the point of his character.
Me too. There wasn't any point, I don't think,
I think he was trying to make something with him, but I couldn't really understand.
No, she was trying to show the original meaning of what it's to be alive, like the original, the original people, how the men are not men anymore, and we have this galactic war, and we have, like, all this crap going on and like galactical warfare and all this crap. But what does it mean to be normal people now? I am still a person. That's what it was, this character. She was like, I can still enjoy the sunset and have tea in my hut. I don't care about these bastards. That's what this character was. And I was like, I get it. Just get on with it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so.
We was just trying to show what people should be, and they shouldn't go mad, and like, yeah, the value of humanity. I think that was the character.
I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like with movies, you get a lot of people cutting out parts and making it streamlined, so it's like fitting into a certain space, and then having it like a good pace and tempo. And with books, you don't get this because the author doesn't get as many editors and as many people talk to him about the pacing. And I think this book has a bunch of problems with pacing.
Yeah. I love the book. This book has lots of problems with pacing.
And I think if this book was like rewritten with somebody advising him, I think it would be so much better. Like, it would be amazing. Like, all the trilogy, if they like rewrote it, but as a team of people who would streamline it, so it's more accessible and more like...
Not just more accessible, I think just some of the things could have been interesting, but they're just there.
Which they are doing that now with the TV shows, and it's going to fail horribly because the people who are writing the TV shows are going to be TV show writers. And they need like a group of book writers to get together and then write the script for the TV show. That would be amazing. Yeah. But that's never gonna happen.
No.
Like, never mind. I'm going off on a tangent completely.
I understand it. I think you're right.
Cool, let's move on. Sorry.
Yeah, so, I mean, after the whole Australia debacle, she goes to the future again.
So they survive because they sent the mad broadcast from the ship that was escaping. Yeah. And that means Trisolar is in panic mode and they left Earth.
Yes.
And people are free to move away from Australia again.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
so, a bunch of people hibernate and we jump to the future. Okay.
Yes. And then at this point, humans expect that the attack will arrive and they are trying to find a way to survive the Dark Forest strike. Yeah,
so now, because we broadcast this signal, we are expecting to be killed immediately by this strike.
Yes.
And Trisolar is
well, they have different hypotheses on when it will happen. And it's not like immediately. It's usually like in a span of time which can be like 20 to like 200 years. And so they're trying to find different ways to survive. They have this system to try and catch when the attack is coming. And there is this completely pointless chapter in which there is essentially a fake alarm.
Oh, I completely forgot that.
Which is like...
yeah, that's another part you could cut out. It's just like all these like...
Okay, what is this showing me? What is this telling me?
I get it that on this scale of this story, there's so much, it's difficult to pick and choose what should be and shouldn't be in there.
Like, the only interesting point of this was AA. Like, they are about to run away and they meet a classroom of elementary school children. Yeah.
Oh, that was terrible. I remember this part. I meant to mention that.
They can only take 3 children and so AA.
That was so bad. Yeah. I felt so bad.
I think that's the only reason why it was there. Just, he wanted to show like, oh, let's put the characters in this situation so they can only choose 3 children. And they will do it with science.
This was so like depressing. I was so feeling so bad at this. It was like
just bored,
very
to be
manipulative.
Honest.
Million depression points on my part. Like, I felt like even more crushed. I was like so much of this.
I don't know.
If you haven't read this, so to explain properly, she has to leave from Earth because they're expecting to just explode it, and they have a bunch of children, and she wants to choose one, so she gives them like a puzzle, and the most clever children get to
3,
escape.
They can only choose 3. So AA gives her like 3 riddles, and the children can solve them first.
Yeah, and because it was false alarm, I forgot that. They find out that they didn't have to do any of this, and a bunch of people tried to escape Earth just too hastily, and everybody died, and all this like propulsion drive which smooshes you on the wall if you don't get into jail comes into play again or something. Was it here?
Yeah, like a lot of things. I don't know, it's just stupid. I don't see the point of this at all.
I think when I was reading it, I think I was into it because I felt like it was realistic that people are so anxious about this coming and that they would have this situation happen with the false alarms.
Yeah.
So I felt like it was justified, but now looking back to it in hindsight, I'm like, this is unnecessary.
I mean, you're right in the sense that it's realistic. I can believe that. But at the same time, what was the point from a narrative standpoint? And also, like, it's so dumb the fact that there was no double check on the alarm. It was just like, oh, yeah, we think we need to send the alarm. Alarm sent. No double check. Immediately everyone on Earth think the strike is coming. Like, what? Really? Like, what did they were drunk.
Yeah, that's terrible.
I don't know.
It was just I like my depression feeling. It was like just going and going and going. Like after Juan, I was still at the back of my mind. It was still eating me up, and it was still like I was still like having a bug in my brain. I was like, where is Yun Juanming it? Where is the brain flying into?
Right.
And then these children dying. What the fuck? I was like, I was so stressed out about this.
Yes.
And just to have a break from depression, there is somewhere in between all these chapters. There is my favorite chapter with the like high class, super high species alien race.
Yeah.
And we actually get a chapter about their point of view and sending the Dark Forest strike.
Yes.
Amazing. I love this section so much.
Yes.
It was so good.
I think it was really, really interesting.
Let me read a quote to set this off. So it was like a super advanced like being, and they were like talking about what to do with these bastards who just sent this signal.
Yes.
And one of them was like, I need a dual vector foil for cleansing. And I was like, yes, this is so good.
Yeah. By the way, in all of this, like, Trisolaris get destroyed.
Yeah, sorry, before that, so Trisolaris gets destroyed first.
Yeah.
And Earth knows because they can see it. So they're even more horrified.
Yes.
And then we get this discussion with like a superior and subordinate super alien high advanced species who just like shoot left and right and destroy civilizations.
Yes.
That was amazing. I didn't expect that at all, like this part.
And they are preparing for something, which is not revealed at this moment, but essentially they are preparing to switch from 3D to 2D.
That's what I said. Yeah, there's no point in hiding this. They are going to do a dual vector foil for cleansing.
Yeah. No, but they are also preparing to switch their whole race to 2D because they are losing a war. That was insane.
Yeah, that's another thing that I forgot to say. Just extra depression points when they got into the fourth dimension from the ship that's escaping. And they were like exploring the fourth dimension, and they saw like these shapes, and then they found like a whale or something, like a tomb or something, like a remnant of other civilization in the 4D dimension.
Yeah, they find inside the 4D space they find a ring, which is a tomb. They speak with this tomb. That was also very, very interesting. And it
was very menacing.
Yeah, the ring tells them that before the whole universe was 4D, but now there are only a few bubbles of 4D space, and all 4D civilizations are dead. And they ask, who did this? And they were like, well, another 4D civilization. They were like, so they also killed themselves. They were like, no, they moved to the 3D. She's like, what the fuck?
So we learned that in the past the space was like 5, 6, 7 dimensional, but it's shrinking because somebody just decides to kill each other by shrinking the dimensions.
Which I think it was a very interesting concept, but kind of like...
Yeah, we'll get to this at the end, I guess.
Hard to... Because at the beginning it says that it was 11 dimensions, and then it shrunk from 11 to 3, and then eventually it will reach 1.
So this tomb thing says that the 4D space is shrinking and disappearing, and that's why they don't exist anymore, because they've been just eradicated. I guess I'll just say it now. I have a big question about this. So they can go into higher dimensions because they don't get destroyed by doing that. So people could go to the fourth dimension. So this fourth dimensional civilization, they are getting destroyed by being shrunk into 3 dimensions.
Yes.
Okay, where is this stuff going? You have this 4-dimensional stuff,
I mean the
and it's going to be smooshed into 3D, and it's a whole civilization and universe of crap. Where is it?
I guess they become invisible to 3D.
But all the other examples of crushing stuff into lower dimensions we've learned about so far, and we will learn about later, all show us the crap that's getting smooshed out.
But from 3D you can see 2D things. From 2D it doesn't say you can see 3D things.
Oh, so we can't see the 4D crap smooshed because we're 3D.
Yeah,
okay.
It could be that. It just becomes
okay, so you answered. I get it. Because I was like, there's so much crap somewhere, so somebody surely must have found this crap being smooshed out from 4D. But I was like, okay, I just want to get this off my chest.
No.
Alright, so what happens next?
I mean, the whole dimension things, I don't know.
I want to talk about this more and other stuff, so let's speed this up a bit, because we'll still have a bunch of plots to go through. But we're almost at the end. The Trisolarans left Earth, and we're expecting to be destroyed, so people panic and they build bunkers, because they expect, by what they saw with Trisolaris, the way they destroyed the 3 objects, the suns, was that they hit one of the suns and it exploded and just burnt everything. So they assume that the same system or method's gonna be used to destroy our solar system. So they're gonna shoot us like a photoid or something and explode the sun, and it's gonna burn all the planets. So based on that assumption, people decide to construct bunkers behind big planets of the solar system to shield themselves from the sun explosion. So all of humanity moves into space bunkers to live into space bunkers.
Yes. Before that, Cheng Jie, sorry, not Cheng Jie, Cheng Jin, she gives control over mega company to Wade, because in the meantime they have received transmission before they while they're building the bunkers or while they're thinking what to do. They have received a transmission from Trisolaris, because Trisolaris says, our planet has been destroyed with, fuck Earth, we don't care about you anymore. But there is this guy who wants to speak with Cheng Jin, who is Yun Tianming. So he gives her some fairy tales. And then in the book, you can read the fairy tales, which was pretty interesting.
Just to explain why the fairy tales, they set up the meeting and we find out they could reconstruct his body with super technology and he lives on their spaceship and like has a farm and everything. And it's like... Yeah, we get a little bit from his point of view, but they don't really share any technological details with him, and he's forbidden to give any strategical or technological...
Which I didn't really understand why.
Because they still fear the technological boom, I think.
Humans.
Like the axioms we talked about.
Okay, but like Earth is about to be destroyed.
Yeah, but I guess they were just being safe.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it is possible.
And they also were very upset about people. I think they just didn't want to help them in any way necessary. But because I guess Yun Tianming helped them, they owe him, and they set up this meeting with Mrs. CX or Miss CX.
Yes.
And she gets a meeting, everybody's watching it, and they can't say anything. So to hide what he's saying about the technological advancements of Trisolaris, he pretends to tell her fairy tales just to say goodbye. And we get like a whole section of, I think, 3 fairy tales.
Yes, it's one fairy tale in 3 parts.
And after they finish with the fairy tales, somebody needs to analyze it and like find the secrets in these fairy tales. And literally, I quote the book. Somebody says, "Let me say something else that's not directly relevant here. As a writer, I want to express my respect for the author. As fairy tales, these are very good."
Yes. Which was very
I was
funny,
like, what? What is he doing?
I mean, he's complimenting himself. Sure.
So, we'll include some memes later. I have a meme about this. It's great.
Yes. So eventually they found out that he basically gave them a clue on how to build light speed engines.
Yeah, I guess we can talk a bit about these fairy tales. Did you like it, the fairy tales?
Yeah, I think they were interesting. I like how he hid the messages within the fairy tales, the whole explanation. I think it was an interesting idea. I think it was...
I really appreciate this approach, because you can never describe alien things specifically without making it ridiculous. And he managed by not describing them, but again doing analogies and like comparing it to things.
Yes, so this was one of the points I wanted to raise, which is in the whole trilogy, aliens are never described. Like, we never get to know how aliens look, how their architecture look, how their spaceships look. The only thing we know is the droplets, but that's literally the only thing we know.
But we learn about their, like, they cannot lie, and we can learn about their, like, reactions.
Yeah. We learned about...
Which is much more interesting.
Like, I think it was a deliberate choice never to describe their looks and what we could see, which, again, I think it's a deliberate choice, and it was extremely interesting.
I really like that.
Because usually authors really like to imagine aliens. But the reality is we can't imagine aliens, it's just impossible for us to imagine realistically aliens. So the way he set it up to just give up on describing anything, I think I
really appreciated it. And at first I was kind of annoyed with the fairy tales, but then it really grew on me, and I really like this reasoning. So it was one of the examples, if you haven't read this, was that they were trying to hide a message about how to construct a drive that would make you accelerate all the way to the speed of light, which is something we couldn't do. And he described it by putting soap like near paper boats floating on water, and because the soap would dissolve behind the ship, it would push the ship forward, which was very creative, the way to explain a scientific concept. I like that a lot.
Yes. Essentially, like, this leads to, the idea where, like, there were 3 different ways to make humanity survive, which were, one was the bunkers, which you have mentioned. The other one was the black domain.
Yeah, another super depressing concept that's very realistic.
If you slow down the speed of light to the point where it can be faster than the escape velocity from the sun's gravity well, then essentially you are, like, light can't escape the sun's gravity well, so it can't escape the solar system, so no one will ever know that the solar system exists. And so so
basically you alter physics in the area where you are so that it looks like you don't exist, which is the only way to survive. So that's the answer to this, like, how to protect yourself from a dark forest strike.
Yes, exactly. That was really interesting. And the third theory to survive for humanity was just to build this speed of light spaceships and just run away, essentially go to another solar system.
It's very, very hard, but they finally figure these things out, which takes them a long time, a lot of effort, a lot of years, and finally they get this information from the fairy tales. And what happens next? So Wade is developing the propulsion that's as fast as light speed engines, basically. The propulsion works by not folding, but like ironing out, flattening space, and the resistance is different, so it propels ships forward. I don't know how to explain this, and I also don't know if I say it correctly. But basically, they're like the gravitational like pull of all over the place, and like the space is like deformed, and when you make it completely even, or like, I don't want to say flat because it's not flat, but it's like, just like clear or just flatten it, straighten it, whatever you want to say. If you do that behind the ship, the ship just moves away from that space because that's not where it would stay, because the physical forces would push it forward. So basically you're making like a line of flat space behind the ship when you're accelerating, because the space is pushing it forward, not the actual engine.
Yes.
Which I haven't heard of before.
I don't know how realistic or how much it makes sense.
It kind of makes sense from like a very limited and naive mind of me, that is in the sense that, when you have a gravitational pull into a star, for example, so it's like, you can imagine like a hole, you're like falling into a hole, so that's like you're going into where the gravity is stronger. But you ironed out this space behind you, so there is no gravitational nothing, the space is completely cleared, so that means anywhere else but there, it's falling. So like falling out of this perfect space constantly, which propels you faster and faster forward. So that's my very naive way of explaining this.
That's a very good way to explain it, I think.
So I like this concept too. There's Wade and the company, and he secretly develops this engine, and it's frowned upon and all this. I'm not sure we should get into all of this.
Well, this is another one of those concepts. I talked about this in the second book as well, which is like in Dune, where the threat of doing something. And so essentially Wade prepared like this super crazy militia armed with antimatter bullets. Which could destroy like a space city in seconds. And
people don't like him because of his history of murdering people, so they don't want to allow him to research this. But he knows it's the only way to escape, because these bunkers are doomed.
Exactly. So he says, let me finish my research. If you don't let me finish my research, I will destroy the world. And Cheng-Chin is like, no, I'm a woman, I can't do that.
Yeah, that was weird, this whole part.
So she says, no, forget about this research, we will not use it.
And it's a huge plot point. So she gives him all the resources and all her money and all her company to be able to develop this, but tells him that only she can approve his decisions when it comes to destroying humanity or something.
Yeah, because people were afraid that building ships which can go at the speed of light could reveal the position of humanity.
Only just testing it and researching it would reveal the position.
Yeah, could reveal possibly. And the other thing is, I think what he was proposing was actually perfectly sensible. Like he was said, I will go really far, so even if they spot this place where we are testing this, they will not think like, oh, this is Earth. And besides that, like, Earth was doomed anyway.
Yes.
So I don't know. That was a very
strange,
weak
but
argument.
I kind of get it. Yeah. You can say that you cannot move that far because it's very relative and blah blah blah, and it's anyway. Mrs. CX hibernates, and she is revived when it's like the very last moment when Wade has to make the decision to like actually do something. And she's like, yeah, I should allow you. And he's like, you bitch, I promised. You know, the humanity is going to die if you don't allow it. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, you fucker, I know you're not going to allow me. And you know, well, you're making a bad decision. And they arrest him. And she says no. And that's like a point which I didn't know has to be there. I didn't think this was necessary at all, this whole drama.
And before that, like there is the whole part where she has to travel to where Wade is, and she goes through different bunkers.
Okay.
The life within the bunkers is explained, which could have been very interesting and I could say this about a lot of parts about the book, because the timeline is constantly moving forward. We see a lot of small pieces of the changing society and the changing world, which is very interesting. And I think it will be interesting to see all of these worlds and explore them more. But because we see so little, it's kind of pointless. Like in this one, she goes through the bunkers. And for example, there is that story where they were building, there was one of the scientific cities, a black hole. And one of the scientists, like, he was like crazy and he fell in love with a black hole and he jumped into the black hole. And then his family couldn't get life insurance because technically he was never dead because he was approaching the center of the black hole endlessly. Just like, why are you telling me this? Is not
that's
interesting.
another one of these, like going too much into something and not having time to go into something. It's like...
Yes. And we even skipped the other useless chapter, like when they went to the maelstrom.
Yeah, that was another thing. That was like really interesting concept, well thought out, but not really necessary. And there's too much crap in this book.
Yes. Like this book is really big and there are so many useless chapters.
I liked them, but they are just like in the way of the grand picture, which is what I talked about. Yeah, you just have to streamline this a bit.
It would be so much better if he would expand more on some of these points, but he only touches on them, and some other of them are kind of like just there, and they don't really mean anything. Like the Maelstrom one was...
It was unnecessary. Wait, but it was still kind of... I didn't mind it.
No, it was not like terrible. It was not unsufferable.
It was a point he wanted to make, and he had it thought out, and he wanted to spend time on it. But he didn't think about the pacing or the relation to the other parts of the story. That's the problem with this series, I think.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
So let's not get into this because it's not that interesting, but Wade is arrested, and she doesn't allow them to develop the curvature propulsion ships, but they still develop it and they don't tell her. And then...
Which was another thing which was like...
doesn't matter at this point, just, okay, they developed it and she doesn't know. And we're getting to this grand finale, finally. So we detect this dark forest strike, but it's not a single, like, 1D, 2D, whatever particle that explodes the sun. It's... Let me read my favorite quote. I need a dual vector foil for cleansing. And they send a dual vector foil, which is like a page that's see-through.
Yes.
And everybody's like looking at it and flying ships surrounding. And it's like, what is this interesting page flying in space? I figure out we should read it in like a book or something. And I stick my hand in it because I'm an idiot and I'm just gonna test this out. It was so funny.
Yeah.
I kind of enjoyed it. And then the strike works in crushing 3D into 2D. So it starts sucking everything into this like vortex dual vector foil that somehow transforms 3D space into 2D space, thus destroying everything 3D into just nothingness and rubble and like 2D trash, which is what I was talking about a while ago when the 4D was the same way transformed into 3D. So now we 3D people are being crushed into 2D and everything is basically becoming a picture, which is also a part that they explained in the fairy tales that we talked about, that there is constantly somebody painting pictures of somebody else, and it was very clever.
Exactly. And it was the only part of the fairy tale they didn't understand.
Finally they get it. We're all becoming pictures now. Damn. So everybody's like getting sucked into this, and it's like basically a black hole, so you can't escape it unless you have a ship accelerating to the speed of light. If you can't go as fast as light, you can't escape.
Because this thing is moving at the speed of light.
Mm-hmm. So everything's being sucked into it, and everybody's picking pictures, and you can see this like painting appearing in the middle of the galaxy, and you can see like the planets being flattened out and everything stretched out. It's like an amazing painting. And I thought this was a meme, but then I looked it up more, and it was actually mentioned in the book. There's like a crazy fan theory, and I thought it was just somebody being mad, but they actually, I think it was in the book, so I'm curious if you remember. Do you remember them talking about Van Gogh, the Starry Night picture?
Van Gogh, yeah.
There's like a crazy-ass theory that the people, like the guy who's holding his face in the Starry Night painting is like 3D and the sky is 2D. And that's why Van Gogh predicted this dual vector galaxy civilization illumination strike, and he knows that we're gonna get smooshed into 2D, and that's why the person in the Starry Night picture is screaming, because he's 3D and he knows he's gonna be crushed into 2D. It's just insane. I think it was pretty funny.
Yeah, Van Gogh painting was mentioned a few times, and you don't know, but this is also a Dune reference.
My God!
When you read the sixth, for sure in the sixth book, it's quite relevant.
If we travel into the different dimensions in Dune, I'm gonna flip my shit. Okay,
they don't. They don't.
Okay.
So, no, the 2D thing, I really like the concept of like having this kind of weapon. I didn't like the way it was described. I think it felt very difficult for me to understand what the author wanted to express with his description. Like, I couldn't create a mental picture of what he was saying.
Yeah, I was thinking about this a lot, and I read a bunch of articles, and I'm not sure. Like, I don't think it's possible in any way. I talked about this at the beginning. I don't buy it. This technology, I don't think it can exist.
No, I don't think it can exist anyway. Like, as a mental picture while reading, it was difficult for me to imagine, based on his description.
I didn't feel like that. I just imagined, a 2D transparent page, kind of a black hole singularity. Like, how do you imagine center of a black hole? So it's black and it's nothing. So this, it's square and 2D and it's nothing. And stuff is sucked into it, yeah.
The fact that it's square is kind of confusing. Like, in nature, nothing is square, everything is circular.
That's for the 2D analogy, yeah. It shouldn't be a circle, I guess. But then it would mess with the imagination of people. I think it's for the purpose of the picture and the page and the painting and all this, that it has to be square, because it's also like technological, so they designed it, so it's like a weapon, so if, that's why they described it like that, I think.
I mean, yeah.
And also they describe it as a vector. You have like the direction of the...
Okay. Well, I guess encoding, yes.
That doesn't matter. It's just, I think he wanted to make it more aggressive and more...
I guess so. I don't know.
Well, anyway, let's slowly wrap this up. So we get another plot point where there was an interesting, sentimental note that nothing will be left behind humanity, and the only thing left behind is written on stone, and we carved on stone all this like history of humankind. We have this like grave tomb historical museum that's gonna be smooshed into 2D, but because it's written in stone, you will be able to read it when it's in 2D and all this.
Yes.
Okay, and then she is like, okay, I'm going to die, and Luigi is there for some reason, like an old hermit that's like frail and dying, and they just have this like...
Yeah, and that was something that I felt was completely pointless, the fact that he was still alive and he was 200 years old, and he was there to say, oh, you did the right thing.
That was nonsense. So if the book ended, I'm already past my first satisfactory ending. They send this dual foil vector for cleansing. The end. Roll the credits. I don't care. Just, I'm done. I would have been fine with that.
Yeah.
And then they describe how the solar system is being crushed and the sun is cooling down and there are snowflakes forming in the picture. Okay, roll the credits. I'm done. Just, it's enough. Snowflakes in the sky. I'm done. It's good. I'm satisfied. Starry Night, snowflakes, perfect. I'm done. Close the book.
Yeah.
And then she finds out that the ship she used to go to this tomb museum secretly was developed with this curvature propulsion drive to accelerate to the speed of light. And she is the only person that can escape, along with AA, her best friend we never talked about.
Who's like, so, okay. Let's talk about AA for a second. I mean, of course, she was a side character, but she was another of those characters where she had zero personality.
Yes, she's not a character.
Like zero.
On my
Her only
part.
Personality was like, oh yeah, she's like this, like, cool, self-confident woman who, plays around with men and looks at the practical side of life.
Yes.
But, like, that's basically all. Like, she has some good moments, but then for the rest of the story, I'm like, what is her personality? And, like, in the ending, okay, well, so we reached the ending. One of the things I hated the most. So they reached the planet. They went to her star.
Yeah, so she starts escaping, and there's AA, CX, and then anybody else? And that's it. Just the two of them.
No, just the two of them.
So they only escape, and people see them leaving, and they're like, these fuckers have the ship, look at them, and we're dying. And it's like a whole scene. And then they escape, and they fly, I wrote it down, 287 years from
Yes.
the perspective of light speed, but only for 52 hours in their perspective. So in the galaxy around them,
Yes.
287 years passed, and they escaped this picture-painting destruction. Everybody is dead. So the only people alive from humankind, so there's two of them. Then there is Yun Tianming, who was a resurrected brain zombie.
Yes,
And
and
the
then
ship, and the ship that's escaping, and I was glad they escaped.
they escaped. They were already safe, and they found the galactic humans. So actually, they on the planet there they meet a scientist from the ship that was the ship that was pursuing the ship that was escaping, so Gravity. And they meet him because he tells them that galactic humans have founded like this new civilization on another planet, and they have learned all of these things about different galactic civilizations. They also learned about the Black Dominion, and they've learned about...
Yeah, this should have been another book. There's so much crap crammed in here. This is like 700 endings for me.
He says so many things.
So they fly to this planet, they meet this guy, and there's like...
Yeah. Yes.
Exposition super dump, like so much crap.
Yes, and for whatever reason, AA immediately falls in love with him, and it's like,
that's also
what?
nonsense.
Like, what is this? Like it's so.
This is
a
symptom of over-accelerated, crammed into plot lines. This always happens in movies. They're always like, oh, they fall in love. Oh, you have children. Ah.
Exactly. And then they go to, because there are two planets orbiting the star, Planet Grey and Planet Blue. They go to Planet Grey, like Cheng Jin and this guy go to Planet Grey, and there they find like those black stripes, and by accident they spread them.
So these death lines,
which means that the speed of light has slowed down significantly, so that by the time they reach Planet Blue again, millions of years have passed. They was like, what?
This is insanity. So they flew to the star that she gifted her, just to find a random guy from the other ship that left, to tell them a bunch of stuff they didn't understand. And they went to go to a planet just to have an accident and fall into a black death line, which is caused by super speed light spaceships that like have the line of space behind them so like fucked up that it's black. And if you fall into this, the gravitational pull is so hard that if you spend a few minutes there, 18 million years pass.
Yes.
And inside of this place, electronics are useless because physics.
Well, not completely, but like normal computers are useless.
But how is the brain not useless? I was like, what?
Yeah.
I was like, if this is the case, if this is so slowed down, like the speed of light is so slowed down here, how is your neuron firing? Your brain? Yeah. Your brainium cranium? What the fuck?
I don't know.
I was like
it doesn't really make sense scientifically. But yeah, so she was so close to meeting Yun Tianming again, and then she couldn't, and instead she ended up spending eternity with the guy AA randomly fell in love with for like 5 seconds, and AA ended up spending her whole life with Yun Tianming, who got there, and we don't know if they actually, fell in love with each other or whatever. Like I hope for Yun Tianming, so
probably AA lived a happy life with Yun Tianming.
That was like the most like, that was such a joke for him.
It was such a like in your face ending. I don't know why this is here.
No.
I don't know why any of this is here.
Yeah, but this, okay, now this is the worst point of the book, which is the pocket universe.
This is like, just stop.
I think it was so stupid. I didn't like this at all. I think it was an idea that was completely outside of everything like in this book. And I like okay, I'll say this. I really, really, really like the idea of someone who's basically outside of time and the universe is ending, and they're writing the history they want to give the history and the experience of humanity to the next universe. I really, really like this concept. Something that I always thought it would make for an interesting story, because I always thought that when you think about like apocalypse and like the end of the world and everything else, because I love history so much, to me the worst aspect of it is always that after this apocalypse there's nothing that can be learned by future civilizations.
Yes.
And to me, a very interesting concept was always, because like on Earth there have been like different like complete collapses of civilizations, but of course there was never a complete collapse of humanity. So the civilizations that came after that, even though they had lost the knowledge and the history of what had happened before them, They will still have some bits and pieces of knowledge. For example, the deluge in the Bible and the history of Atlantis are examples of that. And it's extremely fascinating. But if the universe is ending, then of course there's no way to transmit any information to the future. I mean, it's not even the future, but so it's extremely interesting to me. But of course, it is impossible. And in this book, it is about this topic, like the ending. It is about this topic and how it is possible, maybe, to give information and to give a history to the next universe. So I think that's really fascinating and that's really interesting. On the other hand, the whole idea of the pocket spaces, pocket universes, and how they can be inside that place, and I don't know, like being farmers, like what the fuck they were doing.
Yeah, sorry. So I want to say that what happened, for people who haven't read this, Yun Tianming has been living a good life, and because 18 million years passed, the warfare of universe, battleship, dimensional weaponry, shit went down, and people kill each other, and they kept like slowing down the speed of light, and they kept like doing these black domains, and they kept like reducing space into lower dimensions to kill each other. Long story short, the universe is fucked, and it's going to end being reduced in like lower dimensions. And some people, there was like quotes, even went into like richer propulsion ships. And if you, some of them like had an accident, or some of them like just to drive down on your depression. Like if you went into a light speed ship and had an accident and couldn't stop, you would just live your life until the end of the universe, because it would fly so fast and so far that you would just see the end of the universe. I was like, what? I don't want to know that. Thank you. So that, and then Yun Tianming gifted a last thing before he died to his love that doesn't give a fuck about him, which still doesn't make any sense to me.
No, she actually. Well,
did
yeah,
now. But it's far too late. Like too much too late.
Yes.
Just give up on her.
Yes.
But okay, so he gifted her a pocket universe, which is like a cube outside of space, where she can like spend her life or whatever after the universe is done. But why would she even want to be there when the universe doesn't exist? So then they get into this and they have a farm and stuff.
Well, my other question is, if, Tri Solaris had the technology to build like these pocket universes, and assuming like other civilizations could do that too, then why would they care about the universe ending? They could live there like forever in the pocket universe. They could just make a big pocket universe.
But maybe they didn't, because that's how the story ends, that some kind of authority, whatever, alien people...
No. There was a group who says, like, because there was the big crunch which had to happen, but they said because too much matter has been pulled out of the universe into these pocket universes, then the main universe will not...
Like a reset.
Will not have enough matter. Yeah, will not have enough matter, enough gravity to do the big crunch. Okay, I understand that, but if I am a civilization which is that advanced, I would say, I don't give a shit. I'll just create my own universe with blackjack and beaches. And why would I care that the big universe is collapsing? I can create my own universe which will never collapse. So and there's only me and my civilization. So I've solved the whole problem of the dark forest. Why would I want to do that? Like, it doesn't make any sense. So
that's exactly what I was like, what? At the end of this book, because they are in this pocket universe, and then they get an announcement, like a public announcement message, like, FYI, excuse me, all you fuckers in these pocket universes, excuse me, give it back.
Please get out
and I was
die.
like, who is this? What is? How did they send this message? How does any of this work?
Well, they had the receiver inside the big universe, so...
Is this you go to a ward office, and then you have to apply for a form to have a pocket universe, and they have to compulsorily install a message receiver in it, or what the fuck?
I guess so.
This was completely far-fetched to me. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
The whole pocket universe, to me, it was a stupid idea.
So they decide to leave and just die because they are not allowed to be there, because what you explained with the big crunch. But who decided that? Who's calling them? And he's already being crunched? I don't know. But just for insult to injury, they leave behind a fish.
Yes.
A fish bowl or something. I was like, what? Is this the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy now? What happened?
I think it was a reference to when they first sent the brain of Yun Tianming. But I don't know, it was just a stupid idea. It kind of, I don't want to say ruined the ending for me, but I don't know. I couldn't see the point of having that ending like that.
It was so bad. I hate this ending.
Okay.
And I don't hate this trilogy because I really like the concepts and the ideas. And I already, in my mind, galaxy snowflakes, drying out universe, cooling solar system, being painted into a Starry Night picture. Roll the credits. This is the end. I don't care about what happens next.
I mean, I had a very strong emotional reaction to like when they get stuck in the black hole domain. There was kind of like a big what the fuck moment, but in a very like unexpected way. But I didn't like the resolution of that at all. I don't know. So
the universe, I guess, sucked in all the pocket universes, and it crunched, and now it's reset, and there's the Big Bang. This is what I'm assume. Is that correct?
Yeah, essentially there will be a new universe in 11 dimensions again.
So does that mean that everything in existence just voluntarily just died? Like,
not voluntarily,
but all these people left the pocket universes. Who enforced this?
Well, they do say like there's no guarantee that everyone will leave, and there's actually a chance that not enough people will leave the pocket universes, and the big crunch will not happen. They do say that that is a possibility, so it's left to the reader to imagine what will happen.
And then that's another like super plot hole that I don't get. So they can make these pocket universes, and they can like reduce space into other dimension. Surely now, after 18 bajillion years of technological advancements and making pocket universes, for fuck's sake, they would be able to undo the crashing of the other dimensions. And I was almost worried.
Apparently it's impossible.
I was almost worried that the next chapter is gonna be like, oh, we reversed from 2D to 4D to 27D and it's paradise. Goodbye.
Yeah. Well, from what it is implied, it's kind of impossible for any technological level to revert the process.
I guess, but then if they're able to suck matter into like outside of a universe, wouldn't they just suck in through the whole universe, and there would be like a battle of separate universes, who's got more matter, and then the other one's gonna lose or something? It's just so nonsensical.
I don't know. The pocket universe just introduces a lot of
This shouldn't have been there. Somebody
really
in the writing room should have been sitting there and being like, Mr. Cixin,
These last 50 pages.
Mr. Cixin, what is this?
They're out.
No, you just end 100 pages earlier.
Yes, I agree.
So that's the whole trilogy of the 4-deck problem, 3-body problem, and the official name, the Remembrance of Earth's Past, which I don't like this name.
This is why like it's called this way, because it's essentially
spoilers.
Chengxin writing her memories in the pocket universe.
Yeah.
And in the pocket coffee, which is a joke that only Italians will understand. Do you know what pocket coffee is? Yeah, that's why.
So what is it?
There are like this group of chocolate, they go together. It's Ferrero Rocher, which is the best one, which is the one with almonds. Then there is pocket coffee, which is this chocolate with coffee inside.
It's literally called pocket coffee in Italian.
Yeah, it's called pocket coffee.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Pocket coffee is only the one with coffee. Raffaello is the one with coconuts.
Okay. Well, anyways, thank you for explaining that.
So you can cut this
I'd like to thank our listeners so much. If you've lasted this far and listened all the way to our 4-deck problem extravaganza, so please humor me, I beg you. If you've made it and listened to everything, which I very much doubt somebody did, send me a message or just comment somewhere and say that you listened to the end, because I don't think anybody's going to listen to the end of this.
And, to the end of the universe?
Yes, and send us an email to minddeckjapan@gmail.com or comment on any of the social media and tell us, I finished this podcast episode, because I don't think anybody will finish it. But I'm putting it out there anyway. We've done it. We've made it. We've survived. And I want to say that this is my proof that therapy is very simple. Just talk. So I've had this problem in my mind, 3-body problem and 4-deck problem, and all these books have been piling up in my subconscious. I've been very anxious and all this fuckery with time and space and dimensions. And I haven't solved anything, but by just talking about it, I think it serves as therapy. So If you want to enjoy a therapeutical session, just talk to somebody about anything that's bothering you. I think it's very beneficial. We have just proven by doing this insane podcast. Do you feel better?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, honestly speaking, I wasn't feeling so depressed after reading the books. The only thing that really hit me was Yun Tianming's part, I would say. I was feeling much, much worse after reading Journey to the End of the Dark. Mm-hmm. So if you ever read that, it will be really nice to have a conversation.
It's gonna come up. It's been mentioned so many times that one day I'm gonna have to read that and I'm gonna have to do an episode about it.
I don't recommend it to anyone.
Far in the future. I've been hit left and right. It was like I didn't wear a mouthpiece helmet or boxing gloves, and I went sparring without having any experience in sparring. I was like just fucked up after this book.
Yeah. Well, next time we can talk about people making and breaking earthquakes.
Okay. Yes.
That's definitely less depressing.
You said you were even more depressed after starting the other book.
Yeah, this one is much more depressing.
How do you always find this? Well, before we end, I want to say that check out our website. I'll put some dank memes about Liu Cixin's trilogy in there. I love them. So if you like memes, please check out the podcast notes or check out the website. It's great.
If you don't like memes, then why are you online? How is it possible?
And last question, do you ever want to do this again? How was this experience? It was like a lot of time spent doing this.
I don't mind. If it's a series of books which deserve it, then I don't mind it.
Okay.
I definitely want to do it for Dune.
Yeah, Dune's gonna be insane.
But we won't have any Dune reference, which is kind of sad.
I'm sure it's gonna reference itself for some bullshit.
Yes. Probably.
Yeah, I'm happy we could do it, and I'm happy we survived.
Yeah.
So thank you for listening again, and my final words are: know when to end your story. Just end it in time. And the final score of the last book: 51 depression points. I swear this is a coincidence, same score like the previous book. But because literally everything in the universe ended, I'll award it, like I did in the previous book, 10 more depression points. So the final depression score is 61 points. That leaves us with 28 points for the first one, 51 for the second one, and 61 for the last one. That's 140 depression points. I hope you're happy, Paolo, if you're listening. 140. That's why on the next episode we're gonna take it a little bit more slow, relax, talk about some other books we've been reading, just a catch-up episode. Finally, I'd like to wholeheartedly recommend another podcast about this trilogy. It's called Rehydrate. You can find it at rehydrate.space, where they analyze this book in much more detail, talk about it much more thoroughly. I've already listened to the first season that covers the first book, much more in depth. So if you wanna get more information and more detail, I really recommend it. That's rehydrate.space, as in SPACE. Thank you so much for listening. Rate us on Apple Podcasts, and see you in the next one.